Good afternoon and welcome to the QUTV election special. I'm Abigail Moore. Today we're here to discuss the upcoming election and voting day on November 6th, exactly 1 week from today. Here with me today is history professor Dr. Justin Coffey and political science major Noah James. How this will work is I will be asking you questions based on the upcoming election, the voting. We will be discussing your thoughts on each topic. So how about we get started? One of my first questions in this whole election process is a press release was sent out by the State Board of Elections stating, "Don't be fooled, online voting does not exist," pretty much saying that there's been a scam going around through the state of Illinois. While online voting is not permitted anywhere in the United States, why do you think it's important that we keep voting pen to paper? First off, just right off the bat.
Well, because computers can be hacked. I mean, it's very simple to do that, particularly if you're voting off-site. Now, many states now have electronic voting in ballot booths, but not online. I mean, the easeability in which that could be hacked just renders it dangerous.
And I do think that there's something with pen to paper voting that kind of keeps its legitimacy. And if we have online voting, I think that yes, it will be easier, but like Dr. Coffey said, it will be a little bit more difficult to kind of keep it secure.
Well, and I was going to say I agree, and then I was going to ask if you disagree with that, because some people were kind of afraid that that was going to happen, that there would be online voting and that someone could tamper with it, it'd be messed up in some way.
We already have enough concerns about foreign meddling or hacking from the 2016 election. You cannot foolproof electronic voting right now.
Absolutely.
As you were saying, the piece of paper is legitimate, it will be counted. So I think in the near future, at least, we will not have online voting.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. And I think once you start getting into online voting, then you start getting people who are going to go around the system and try to change something like that.
Yes, it's very easy to manipulate, yes.
Well, and on the other hand, do you think that it's possible that some polls could not be credible or legitimate?
If there was online voting, yes, absolutely. I mean, again, we have a problem even with electronic voting. There are sometimes problems at polling stations with electronic votes being cast and not counted for whatever reason. Machines malfunction. That's why it's always safer to have the paper ballot.
Yeah.
Just to summarize it all up, I do think that the margin of error in voting online is just way too much of a cost, and so I think that for now at least, we should just stick to regular pen and paper.
I think so too, and especially for the upcoming elections, getting people ready and prepared. In exactly 1 week from today, this is a big deal.
There's also one thing, it's unfair to people who say don't have Wi-Fi at home or might not have a computer. I mean, that would mean some people wouldn't be able to do it. That would be unfair.
Oh, exactly. So I think it's smart for them to make it available to all those people.
Right.
A pen to paper voting, I think we should stick with that. I don't think we should sway from that.
Right.
Absolutely. So in regards to that, why are elections so important? Why should students be involved in them? This is kind of a general thought that students don't think that their vote is going to count, don't want to get involved in it. So why are they so important?
Go ahead.
Well, my perspective as a young voter, the voting rights have for the age limit. You know, we have just been exposed to this world of voting, and you know there are a lot of do's and don'ts, and it's just a lot of like feel it out. And students need time to become more involved in it and kind of get their boots on the ground and be able to kind of work the system and know a lot about it before they actually make an educated decision.
Oh, absolutely.
Elections have consequences for people of all ages. Let's say right now you're in Illinois and you're a student and you're working. Well, the minimum age might go up depending on which candidate wins the gubernatorial election. Your taxes might be raised. Depending on which candidate. So that is a reason why students should get involved. If you're 20 years old and you say it doesn't matter to me, well, affect your paycheck. It could affect your student loans. All of those things, they really have consequences that are immediate. And the lowest voter turnout is between the ages of 18 and 30. And that's unfortunate. And I think that I am seeing more student engagement in the last couple of years, and I expect to have a higher turnout in this midterm election than is typical.
Well, and something that you mentioned is that it's going to affect you no matter what
Yes.
age you are. If you're a 20-year-old in college and you're working and your taxes are going to be raised
Yes.
due to you not going to vote, you letting someone else take that
Yes.
right from you,
Right.
just
Right.
because you didn't want to go do that, that's going to affect you.
Yes, and you know, at the federal level, there are differences about student loans. There's some candidates who are saying we should have student loan forgiveness. Other candidates are opposed to that. That affects people in college, so it does matter.
Right.
That's very true. Yeah, I think that's something that students have to know. They just have to know right around. If you don't go and vote, if you don't put in your opinion, your voice, I mean, this is a democracy. You have the right to do that.
Right. And something that I will add on top of that is when you said that they were becoming more active and involved, and I will agree with that. And I mean, on all of my social medias, and just the kind of attitude that I get from millennials and people my age is that they really want to vote, especially in this upcoming midterm. People are going to vote, and with the early voting, I do believe that those numbers are showing that at least record numbers of people are getting out and voting. And so I think that with this in particular, it's very important, and I think that they're kind of starting to get that.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I think the positivity coming from those students that want to vote, this lower age that wants to vote, I think that's going to impact generations from now.
Yes,
Of course.
absolutely.
Yeah. So stemming from that, so each candidate that is running for a position in Illinois, specifically the two governor candidates, what should students know about each of those candidates? What should they note about those candidates?
Well, Bruce Rauner is a Republican. He's the incumbent. He's running against J.P. Pritzker, who has never held an elective office. This is his first time for running for office. Again, the key issues separating the two have to do with taxes and minimum wage that affect students. You have a lot of students who are making a minimum wage. J.P. Pritzker has said that he wants to raise that eventually to $15 an hour, which would help many students. But at the same point in time, Bruce Rauner has said he's opposed to raising any taxes, which, if there was a rate increase, would affect everyone's paycheck. So what students really have to do is go to the websites and really learn about their different position and what is best for them going forward.
I think so too. Did you have any comment on that?
Well, I do understand partly what's going on, but I think that the attitude of the younger generation is that they just don't really put much effort into it, and I do not know quite as much about the nitty-gritty political stuff as Dr. Coffey, but I am, like he said, starting to look into those websites, and I'm actually telling everybody that I know around to also look at those websites too, whether it be sharing that link or whatever. But
Oh yeah.
That is great.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, I think even if you don't know about it, every little detail of each candidate, I think it's smart to know what they stand for, what they know, and even I'm still learning about what each candidate is wanting, what they stand for, how it's going to affect each college student. So having the students know what they stand for, who they're voting for, I think that's very smart.
And I think part of the thing is that there's a lot of information out there, and it's hard to figure out which information you necessarily want to access. There are a lot of policies being discussed, a lot of issues, and there's only a certain amount that we actually get in the news. So it's just all about finding the right sources and stuff like that to really figure out what's important.
You're right.
We have a lot of students from Missouri, and their vote will count for the Senate. The control of the United States Senate is up in the air, and Josh Hawley, the Republican, is running against the Democrat Claire McCaskill, the incumbent. That is as important a race as there is in the country. So for the QU students who live in Missouri, you actually have the chance to affect control of the United States Senate. And so pay attention to what Hawley and McCaskill are saying, and go to their websites and educate yourself. So, you know, we're right on the line here between Illinois and Missouri, and two very key races, Illinois gubernatorial race and the Senate race in Missouri. That's a very key contest.
Oh, that's very true. And we have students from all over the United States
Right.
who do have the opportunity to go out and vote on November 6th.
Yes.
And they do have the opportunity to look at all of these candidates online.
Right.
Is there a specific website that either of you go to look at these?
Well,
these
you
kind
know,
of facts?
there is a website that is neutral. It has both conservative and liberals and Democrats and Republican authors, and they also give accurate polls. They aggregate all the polls. It's called realclearpolitics.com. That is a site that is neutral. It doesn't take sides. It just takes all the polls and puts them together and says who's ahead. And it also has links to conservative or liberal authors and other issues. That is a site I suggest that students go to because it gives both sides and is strictly neutral. realclearpolitics.com.
realclearpolitics.com.
Yes, great website. I
gonna
check
take
it.
a look at that.
I check it all the time for the polls.
Right.
Because
Really?
yes, and again, it's straight down the middle, and you can get both sides. You know, if you're on one side, you can read about the other, and that's a real good thing.
And I think that's what students need.
Yes, I would agree.
You have to have a little bit of both.
Yes.
You can't be so one-sided. You can't go into this whole voting process and just think, oh, well, I don't want this guy because he's, you know, a Republican or a Democrat
Right.
or...
Yeah, and I think that's just the fear with all that info out there is that you don't really know which one exactly swings what way. So I think that the fact that you have stuff like that is really helpful too.
And if I could give some advice, don't watch campaign television commercials. Don't trust them at all.
Right.
They're simply dishonest
Yes.
on both sides. They're just essentially, they're propaganda, not the truth.
I've heard so many radio ads,
Yeah.
seen so many TV
Trust them.
commercials. It's just sad the amount that they've put out there.
It's all negative and it's all twisted.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So, yes. So from a student perspective, how many students have you talked to, you know, communicated with who are going to go vote on November 6th?
Well, I communicate with as many students as I can because I think that this is important and I really am starting to feel the momentum kind of shift, so I kind of just want to be able to push it that a little extra way. But there's just not a whole lot of conversation about it, and I think that if people were able to know about where polling places are and when those polling dates are, they'll be able to figure out, you know, a good day to go. And I think something that also helps is the fact that QU has a polling place right on campus, and at the HFC.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's another thing that helps. And but
That does help a
yeah,
lot.
so
I will.
just pushing as many people as I possibly can in that direction, and kind of getting that conversation going, and kind of getting the ball to roll is really the direction that I would like to see it go.
That's a great idea. That's so smart.
Yes.
So for the sake of the state of Illinois, what do you think, how do I word this? For the sake of the state of Illinois,
Yes.
what qualities in a governor should we have, do you believe, since our state has been affected financially in
Yes.
so many negative ways? What do we need in this next?
It's interesting because both Bruce Rauner and J.P. Pritzker were not career politicians. Bruce Rauner ran 4 years ago saying, I'm not a politician, I'm going to clean up the mess in Springfield. Now Pritzker is someone from Chicago who's never run for office, and he is essentially saying the same thing. These are two men with diametrically opposing views. For students, you want to pay attention to what goes on in Springfield, Illinois, in terms of who do you want in control of the state. Educate yourself as much as possible because, as you point out, Illinois is in very dire economic circumstances. We have a huge budget deficit and we have a very low credit rating. So this election really does count a lot.
Yes. I would I would go as far as to say this is one of the most important in the history of
It's a critical
Illinois.
election.
It's very
for the future.
critical.
Mhm.
Yes. Especially with how much it's going to affect everybody,
Right.
and
Right.
students and the people from, in generations to come.
Right.
So I think that's very important. Is there anything else you wanted to comment about?
I was just going to piggyback off of, I was just going to agree with what Dr. Coffey had said.
That's very smart. Well, is there anything else that either of you would like the students to know to educate them on this upcoming election on November 6th?
I would say do as much research as possible, as much reading. Everything from newspapers, online, go to candidates' websites, the website that I mentioned. Tune off the rhetoric from the campaign commercials, but also discuss your views with other students because they will bring in points of view that you haven't heard.
Right.
I think that's critically important to engage with people who you might not agree with. You'll learn something new. I think that's vitally important.
I think within the student population that conversation with conflicting sides has really been lost. And I do think that is vitally important that the students have not only conversations with one another, but with their professors. The history professors, the political science professors, they're all wonderful, and they will all teach you something while letting you know what they think, and just kind of getting all those ideas, and just 10 to 15 minutes a day of research.
Yes.
You have a news app, and you can actually get notifications that through whatever sources you want will provide some information, and will pop right up there. And so I mean, they're just little tweaks that go a long way. And I think that together, whenever we all kind of start to bring this awareness around, if you can call it an awareness, I think that it'll be a better voter turnout. And I think that the way that people look at voting, especially the younger generation, will kind of be put into a little bit more of a positive light.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think something that you said, Dr. Coffey, just having an open mind, not really being offended by somebody else's opinion, what they think, but more collaborating with that person and trying to learn something new about yourself, the government, politics, the country that you're living in. That's very important.
I study politics for a living, and I do commentary on it. I do not watch the nightly cable news talk shows because all they do is one thing: either shout at each other or have people who agree with them. That's not a way to learn. And you just need to be exposed to different points of view in a civil manner so you can have rational, thoughtful discussion and grow and learn. Voting is your civic responsibility.
Yes.
It's vitally important. It's as important as anything you can do. And it's important to be informed. Reading is the best thing, and talking with other people. Those are the best ways to educate yourselves.
Well, that's awesome. That will be it for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Coffey and
for
Noah
having me.
James.
Thank you for having
Thank you so much for being on the show today as we discuss these very important topics for the upcoming election, because it's just around the corner. I'm Abigail Moore. Thank you for tuning in to the QUTV election special this week. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube for your latest campus news, and go and vote next Tuesday.